is?
He's with Remlin.
Okay.
So we're all set.
Hang on a second. Let me just start the, yeah, just a sec. Okay, here, go ahead.
Okay. So welcome to the December meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We did have several people who contacted us to speak during public comment. At the moment, we're not seeing those people in the waiting room, and it's a little unclear whether that is just, that may be due to some technical difficulties that we're having getting people to speak during public comment. Lisa, you still don't see anyone in the waiting room?
No.
So what I can say, if there are people out there who wish to speak but are unable to speak tonight because they haven't gotten the information or they can't get into the waiting room, we will be looking at the green building policy in January, and I would absolutely welcome people to come and speak at that meeting if for whatever reason you're unable to speak tonight. So with that said, we'll get started. We did have two requested changes to the agenda. One was to move up the report from Brian McCracken, the city's historic preservation planner. And then the second was to move up the watershed rules and regulations. So I guess we could go ahead and get started. Brian, do you want to do your report first, and then maybe we'll move to Roxy for the watershed rules?
Absolutely. Thank you, Seth. So I'm here tonight to present information on a proposed shared service between the town and city of Ithaca. Again, this is still just a work in progress, but the basic outline is the town of Ithaca in their 2014 adopted comprehensive plan identified the goal of creating their own landmarks ordinance to protect some of their historic resources. And in investigating opportunities to do this work, they contacted me to ask about what the city of Ithaca does and, would I be willing to help them explore opportunities. These conversations led to the idea of creating a combined landmarks ordinance and shared staffing in a combined Ithaca Landmarks Preservation Commission that would review projects in both the city and town. But establishing something like that would create a lot of work, additional work for, city staff who would be responsible or could be responsible for implementing it. So in their 2021 budget, the town of Ithaca has allocated funds to help cover a portion of my time to investigate this opportunity further. With input from both municipalities, if the town and the city feel it is mutually beneficial, I would be responsible for implementing the shared service. The memo that I circulated has some of the tasks that I would be working on as part of this opportunity, exploring this opportunity. And so I'm here tonight to see if there are any questions from council members and just get a general sense if others feel that this is a good opportunity and something worth exploring in more detail.
All right. Are there any comments or questions for Brian? See, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. And thank you, Brian, for sharing this memo. I think this could be a very good opportunity for shared services. And I'm glad to see that the MOU is being developed. It's currently under review by the city attorney's office. And it looks like we will take this up at the January PEDC meeting. At this point, it looks like a very good partnership. We have other partnerships with the town, and this seems like another good opportunity. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. I thought your memo really spelled all of this out really well, and I think it's a great opportunity for shared services. Yeah, I fully support it. I think it looks great.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah.
Oh, sorry, Joanne, I cut you off.
No, go ahead, Anna.
Oh, sorry, is Donna?
Yeah, as the liaison to the ILPC, I think this is a great idea. I liked it. I think it was over a year ago when it was first brought up. And so I think it'd be a terrific opportunity for shared service and to help promote historic preservation in the broader community. So I look forward to hearing more about it and to supporting it fully later.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you, Brian. And I guess we'll be revisiting this in the new year.
Great, thank you all very much, and thank you for moving me up on the agenda.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, you do have another meeting, Brian,
I
right?
do.
Yes.
I do, but now I can eat dinner. I'm excited about that.
Good. Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks,
And have a
Brian.
great evening.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Is Roxy's here? Yes.
He's here.
So we have a memo and a proposed resolution that Cynthia sent us, and also Roxy, just to spell out this proposal we're bringing forward for trying to convince the state to set up new watershed rules and regulations. Roxy, I thought you did a great job, and that memo really spells out the history of this. Seems like it's some of it is ancient history at this point, something you've been working on for a really long time. I don't know if other folks got a chance to look at the memo, or if you have questions for Roxy. She was very kind to come here tonight to answer any questions that people may have. Or Cynthia, if you want to say anything, since you're the member who brought this forward.
Yes, I think this is a tremendous opportunity of support to basically endorse a process that Cayuga County and the municipalities in the Owasco Lake watershed have undertaken to update their watershed rules and regulations. Actually, I'll let Roxy talk a little bit about this history and the process and where we are now and what we as a city hope to do in the future.
Thanks for giving us time on the agenda tonight for this. Really appreciate that. So yeah, this predates me quite a bit, 100 years or so. So watershed rules and regulations were created as a way to protect drinking water, the source of drinking water, in the absence of any other kind of agency or regulatory body. And so every water purveyor that came into business through the 40s or 50s or so created these and had them on the books. But as you can imagine, they're really dated. So since then, the EPA was created, Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, DEC, health departments, bathing beach things. All these other regulations came into play that kind of filled the same space for protecting source water. However, none of those agencies or regulations really deal very well with cumulative impacts or non-point source pollution. And so as time has moved on, the state has started to show interest again in using this mechanism of watershed rules and regs to deal with things like harmful algae blooms. And that's exactly what moved the city of Auburn and the town of Owasco to update their watershed rules and regulations. You might remember they actually have quite a history of harmful algae blooms in Owasco Lake, and they have actually measured the toxin, the microcystin toxin, in their drinking water, not at a level that would impact health, but the fact that it was measurable was a first in New York State and got everyone pretty concerned about the issue. Other areas have used watershed rules and regs or updated them in the late 90s when they were doing filtration avoidance waivers. So they didn't want to build a lot of new water treatment facilities. In New York City and Syracuse have both done that for the New York City, for their Catskills and other upstate water sources, and Syracuse for Skaneateles Lake. So it has happened, but it's been infrequent in the last few decades. And so there is a sense that there'll be some resistance to go ahead and promulgate these at the state level and put them into law. And so Cayuga County has spent 3 years working with all of the stakeholder audiences and getting a lot of buy-in, but they would like support, supporting resolutions for the process to send along with their packet to the state. We have also looked at updating our own watershed rules and regulations, which focus on carcasses and privies and things like that, that maybe aren't the biggest problem in our watershed now. And so we want to support this effort, as we would like to have support when we are ready to also update our watershed rules and regs. And Cornell University, for their drinking water plant, has been doing the same thing and working with us on that. Bolton Point is also interested in it. They don't have watershed rules and regulations, but again, it's a big task for them. So we've all been looking to Owasco as our trailblazer, and they've set up such a good process to follow. And so we're just looking to support them tonight and the work they've done, and let the state know that we support this process.
Great, thank you, Roxy. Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Roxy, for the memo and for this description. Can you just say a couple words about the basis for the resistance that was experienced in the past, and why there was no New York State support, and what's your best sense of how can we anticipate support from the state going forward?
Well, we don't know, and that's one reason that Cayuga County is looking for supporting resolutions. Not many people have tried to do this outside of some large need, like when New York City didn't want to spend literally billions of dollars to build filtration plants. It was worth their time and money to go in the upstate and pay for new wastewater plants and pay for barn lot improvements and pay for over 117, I think it was originally, police officers, simply to protect their source water reservoirs up there, because that was far cheaper. But it's not an easy task. And so not many people have tried to do it. And most people have the sense that the agencies in a place are adequate. But HABs have changed the equation for people. So when that happened in Auburn, Governor Cuomo came up with $65 million almost overnight, developed the Finger Lakes Hub, which has a staff of people which are dedicated to projects throughout the Finger Lakes, but originally it was really all about Auburn and helping them get research on that lake for the harmful algae bloom problem. Came up with a quick fix, $2 million to upgrade their water treatment plant with granular activated carbon, and wrote 12 action plans for 12 different lakes for studies and to implement protection plans to try and figure out what will work for HABs. So there's a lot of state support for this. And out of the Department of Health at the state level, they've specifically said they're re-looking at watershed rules and regs. It also has to go through review of the ag and markets. And there is some pushback there because most of our regulations don't actually address farm practices. And there's good reasons for that, but I think we are reaching a point where the only thing we have left that we aren't addressing is non-point source pollution inputs. And farmland is the biggest acreage in many of our watersheds. And so even if any one particular farm isn't creating a lot of pollution, by ignoring all of the farms, you are ignoring a significant problem. And so it's just going to be kind of a tough message to carry. There were farmers involved in the development of the Owasco watershed rules and regs, and many of them are supportive. But we expect some pushback from the Farm Bureau and Ag and Markets.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions on this? Well, thank you, Roxy. That was a really great summary of this. And I think at this point, we need a motion on the resolution. Is there a motion? Moved by Cynthia, second by Laura. Any further discussion? So this would go to the January meeting of Common Council. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you both to Cynthia and Roxy for bringing this forward. I think this is a big, important opportunity to make a statement that could do a lot of good for the city. So thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your time.
And just some information for those who'd like to learn more. Steve Lynch, who's the Director of Planning for Cayuga County, will be attending Monday's Tompkins County Water Resource Committee meeting to talk about the process that they've undertaken with regards to the rules and regs. And people are able to attend at 4:15. Thank you.
Okay. So it does turn out that we did have a technical problem with sending out the Zoom information for tonight's meeting for the public comment. So I know Dan Cogan, is our chief of staff, is resending that information now. So if you're watching at home and you had originally signed up to speak during the public comment, you should be getting a link to your email. So if you follow that link, you'll be able to sign up. I hope. And I apologize for this, that, we had intended to send this out earlier, but I guess it didn't happen. So we're trying to do it right now. I don't know, Lisa, is there anyone in the room?
There's 3 people in the room. I don't have the list, but I assume they must have shown up to speak.
I have the list. I have one name that is not on my list.
Oh, more people are coming.
Yeah.
There's some more people coming in.
Okay.
So
Sorry, I'm trying to get to
As
the,
we're working this out, would it be helpful if we,
Yeah.
I know we usually do public comment first, but would it be helpful to have the public hearing
is this, yeah, on the
first?
Green Street Garage.
Yeah.
DD. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that?
okay.
Does someone want to move the public hearing? Moved by Laura. Is there a second? Seconded by Donna. So this is a public hearing on the disposition of the Green Street Garage, the eastern section of the Green Street Garage, which is planned for an urban development project. I don't know if we had anyone who signed up to speak on that specific topic. I see Joanne shaking her head. You know,
No, I did not have anyone to speak up to speak to that.
we had a lot of people want to speak on the green building policy. I know.
Right.
We'll do that during the regular public comment. So is there a motion to close the public hearing? I moved by a bunch of people. Seconded by Donna. All in favor of closing the public hearing? And that closes unanimously. All right, how are we looking on public comment now?
Okay.
Looks like a lot of people in the waiting room.
Okay, good. All right, so we have to,
Okay.
they have to have signed up, so we have to.
That's right.
Yeah. So we could let them all in and then just read their names as they.
I can't, somehow I'm having trouble viewing who's in the waiting room. Don't know
Do you-
why.
I have Janelle, Maggie, Katie Sims,
Okay,
Real.
Katie Sims, okay.
I think if all these people are showing up, they must have gotten the.
You must have
Okay.
got it.
It's probably safe to just let them in and then
Yeah, I
call
think so, yeah.
them.
Okay,
Should I
that's-
do that? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna let everybody in and please mute, and then we'll call on you one by one.
All right, is that everyone? Lisa?
Yeah, people, that's everybody for the moment.
Okay.
I'll just let people in as they come, if other people come.
And do you have the
Okay.
list of speakers?
I have the list of speakers in the order that they signed up to speak. So why don't I just start going through those and,
Yeah, that makes sense.
okay.
And I'll just remind everyone quickly that the rules, I don't know if some folks may have spoken at these meetings before, but basically our rules are that you get 3 minutes to speak. And Joanne or another member of staff will give you a warning when there's a minute left. And we have a number of speakers tonight. I realize a lot of people are here to speak on the green building policy. It isn't on the agenda tonight, but I think it will be on the agenda in January. I'm pretty sure. Just given that there's a lot on our agenda tonight, we have a pretty busy night. If you find that you're repeating things that have already been said, if you maybe would consider shortening your remarks or even forgoing your turn, that would certainly be helpful to us to move the meeting forward tonight. So Joanne, do you want to call on the first speaker?
Do you want me to just give a very quick overview of where we are with the green building policy?
Yeah, actually, that would be great. I think if you just did that quickly, and then we'll get on to public comment.
Okay, I certainly will. So we are going to be seeing this at the Planning Committee next month. I do want to remind people that we had a very good start on this, and then the pandemic hit. And of course, many of our staff were furloughed, and we were spread very thin during that time. So some projects had to take a back seat. Some staff members that were working on this have young children at home that they had to take care of during that pandemic. So I just want to put it in that light, because I know there was a lot of criticism about how long it's taking. But we will be seeing this in January. The Planning Committee will give a green light for it to be circulated. We'll circulate it for about 30 days. And then, so we will be taking written comments, and then we will bring it back to the February meeting of the Planning Committee, which will be on February 17th. In March, we're going to hope that we will be able to adopt this. So we are seeing the end of this portion of the green building policy. Once it's been adopted by Common Council, we will move on to the green building policy for existing buildings. And I just want to give a shout out to Nick Goldsmith, who was our sustainability planner. And he works 20 hours a week for the city and 20 hours a week for the town. So this has been a heavy lift for him, but he's really done a very good job, and you will all be able to see it soon.
Great, thank you, Joanne. Do you have the first speaker?
Okay, so first speaker that I have on the list was Scott Zazu. Is he on the line?
Is Scott here?
See anybody named that in the meeting? So-
Okay, so Katie Sims I saw.
She.
Yep. Katie Sims.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, I'm Katie Sims, and I'm here to talk about the green building policy. And when Ithaca passed the Green New Deal last year, it promised as a city to be a visionary and a municipality and a leader in mitigating climate change. I don't really see that in the green building, the green building policy based on the revisions that were made since the last draft. I think allowing new fossil fuel projects and providing points for them is setting the city up for failure to meet its carbon neutrality commitment. I'd like to see the points number increased, and I'd also just like to see that this is truly a priority coming up over the next couple months, and getting it out speedily and making sure that the policy is truly getting us on track. So eliminating having the fossil fuel prerequisite for the efficiency projects. So no fossil fuels on those efficiency projects. And then also increasing the points number. Because as you know, this policy, the original timeline was to have it in place in 2018. Going into, we're looking at it starting, if it's adopted in March and then it takes 6 months to go into effect, coming at the end of 2021, that, it's a different situation. We're a lot closer to the carbon neutrality goal. And I think that the points need to reflect that. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Who's next?
Gabrielle Ewing. I'll just keep going down, then we can revisit.
I see that person.
Oh, you do?
I see
Okay.
that person here. Yeah, you're muted, Gabriel. Gabriel.
Oh, my bad. That's me. There we go. I'm also talking about comments about the green building policy. I think there's a lot of different sections of it that needs some revision, whether it's like specifically about the number of points or the fact that for some reason natural gas is included in it. Obviously, a lot of people are going to talk about that. I think my main gripe is just in general, it seems really, really conservative. And it seems like this is kind of something that's aimed to just get passed and get done as maybe just like a publicity stunt from the city of Ithaca. And I really have doubts that this is going to allow us to lead to that goal of being carbon neutral by 2030 as a city. I think, you know, when we're building buildings, we have to be thinking about how long they're going to last. And as far as I know, all the buildings like around here are much older than 10 years. So we have to be building these buildings in a way that's going to reflect what our goals are as long as they're going to be standing. And although maybe this policy is all right for right now, by the time these buildings are 10 years old, when they're still fairly new, it's going to be really difficult to have this really kind of lacking green building policy transition into the more robust goals that we have laid out in the Green New Deal. So I think a lot of the things need to be changed so that it's a lot more radical in its actions. It has a lot more control over making sure that things are carbon neutral, making sure that they're going to be able to be so once we get the energy grid set over. And right now, that's just not the case. I think right now, I was looking through it earlier today, and the draft, which I guess is from 2019, but unfortunately, like the only thing that we're working with right now, as it is, you could get a building approved just with things like affordability improvements and like other points for walkability, which means that you're not required to have something that's heated by heat pumps. You're not required to take those energy efficient savings into account. You can just do kind of these small things to make it pass. And that's really not going to stand the test of time. That's going to make it really difficult for the city of Ithaca to meet its goals of being carbon neutral by 2030. And then also the additional ones that come in 2025 with the transportation sector and things like that. So I think we need to be a lot more thorough with the actions that we're taking now so that they can reflect what we want to meet in.
One minute.
Thanks, Gabriel. Steve, you had a comment from Teresa Alt. You said
I
you
do. Yeah, I do. All right. All right, this is from Teresa Alt, 206 Eddy Street, and Teresa Helper, 209 South Geneva Street. They say, we would like to suggest that it is time for the city to rescind CTAP. The original purpose of CTAP was to encourage densification in hard to build central downtown areas. Now, some of the hardest lots have been built up and we have made strides towards the density we envisioned. By this metric, CTAP has been a success. However, the relatively automatic availability of tax abatements in the downtown core has driven up property values, which has in turn increased the likelihood that the developed housing units will be offered at luxury prices. Therefore, CTAP has played a role in the gentrification of downtown and appears to be headed towards the same influence on West State and what was previously one of our most affordable neighborhoods. Meanwhile, developers of workforce housing have to compete with deeper pockets who rely on luxury rents combined with tax abatements to recoup the increased land costs. It's unlikely that abolishing CTAP will lead to significant slowdown in development downtown. Building has been vigorous in Collegetown without any tax abatements, even with per bedroom rents lower in Collegetown than in downtown. Nor will abolishing CTAP make it possible for the IDA to offer tax abatements in the city or even to offer abatements on residential developments. The scope of IDA's abilities to justify abatements has been growing over the years. However, without the relatively automatic imprimatur of CTAP, projects throughout the city and the county would have to compete on their own merits, showing public benefits to justify the abatements. It is also reasonable to hope that without CTAP, land values in the West End may moderate somewhat, facilitating the development. I'm being corrected in the middle of this that this is the old comment. And indeed it is.
Yeah, it did sound familiar, although
Yeah.
Teresa does repeat comments month after month. So
I was, all right. So I'm sorry about that, Teresa. I'll try to find the right one, but we can move on.
Okay.
All right, we'll come back to Teresa's comment.
Okay. James Warren.
Hi, I'm James. I live on Green Street, 525 West Green Street. I'm also a grad assistant with the Ithaca Green New Deal. So I do some work with that in town. Obviously, I'm here to speak about the green building policy as well. I'm echoing some of the comments that we've heard thus far about raising the point limit. Specifically, some of us, I don't want to speak for every single person sort of in this Green New Deal work, but we are looking for a point increase from 6 points to 12 points in the rule released in January. That would, in our view, give us the ability to actually push developers and new buildings to standards that actually will improve our environment. As it stands right now, 6 points, most of them won't have to change at all to meet that goal. And so it's effectively a useless goal if released in current
Didn't
form.
they say that they were not talking about this tonight? Why are they letting all these people talk about this?
Sorry, I think somebody was interrupting. We don't typically have interruptions or like cross conversation during public comment. So James, if you could continue your comment.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Additionally, it would be in the best interest of renters and to utilize market forces to include heating and cooling costs to have owners pay for heating and cooling costs. When those payments are transferred to renters, they'll be able to identify these costs as they pay rent, enable the market to help address some of these climate issues. So I don't want to repeat too much of what others have said. That's my comment.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Just one note. So Lisa, Nicholas, who's sort of moderating this, is going to remove people from the meeting after they've spoken. You can still watch the meeting on the live stream of the YouTube. So just a heads up if that happens to you after you've spoke. Joanne, next.
Okay, yep. Lila, and forgive me, but Simpfendorfer.
Hi, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I also want to comment on the green building policy, and specifically, I'm very frustrated about how fossil fuel use, and specifically natural gas, can contribute to points towards a green building. I think that building new buildings with the infrastructure for natural gas use is incredibly counterproductive towards our goals and will contribute in the long run to more emissions and work against carbon neutrality. So that is largely where I take issue with the new policies.
Thank you.
Eli?
Was that your comment? Were you finished there?
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. Okay, thank you very much.
Moving right along. Let's see, Eliza Evet? All right, Amanda Cronin? Chelsea Steffies? Tom Murphy? There you are, Thomas.
Hello. I agree with everyone who has spoken previously about the Green New Deal and the comment that Mr. Sarah Regensman has put in the comments. I appreciate all the work of elected officials who have been working their butts off and taking care of kids at the same time. No further comment. Thank you very much.
Let's see, Bryn Schmidt, whose name I do see.
Yes, here I am. Hi. Yeah, I also wanted to comment about the green building policy considerations. And I'm another one who takes issue. I'm a grandma and a mom, and I take issue with the natural gas part of the policy. I feel very strongly that the time has come that all buildings should be required to use sustainable and renewable sources of energy. And this most emphatically does not include so-called natural gas, which is produced by fracking, a dangerous and extremely polluting technology that has for the last decade or so been damaging farms, soil, and drinking water sources for our neighbors in northern Pennsylvania, and causing all kinds of disruption and health risks and emotional stress for communities there. We also know now through the research of Robert Howarth at Cornell and other scientists around the world that the methane that is released into the atmosphere at every stage of the life cycle of natural gas is one of the major contributors to global climate disruption. To support the use of natural gas is therefore in direct conflict with the stated goals of Ithaca's Green New Deal, the aim of which is to swiftly and significantly reduce Ithaca's contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak and for all the hard work that you do.
Thank you, Bryn.
And just to clarify, I am timing, so everyone's been very succinct and we appreciate that. Let's see, Colden Pro.
Joanne, I saw that Steve said he now has the correct Teresa Alt comment. I don't know if you want to do that now.
Oh, you want to just, sure, of course, yes.
All right. Round two. From Teresa Alt. I start from the Ithacan, 215 East State Street, but I'm speaking neither for nor against that project. You don't really have a choice. Rimland has you in his talons. And as he points out, if you don't go ahead with this project, the city is stuck with the crumbling east portion of the Green Street parking garage. But reflect on how dedication to cars has gotten you to this point. Now I turn to Novar and Projansky's request for the Innovation District PUD in College Town. I really appreciate that they don't want lots of new parking, that they have learned that earlier parking requirements were overkill. In return for heightened density of the PUD, the city should, of course, demand a lot of affordable housing, both on-site and in subsidies. The city should also demand subsidy for more public transit, perhaps also conversion of the private buses serving College Town Terrace to public ones that serve the whole community. It's not clear to me why young adults can't walk a mile to campus when whole families on West Hill badly need more frequent bus service. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Steve and Teresa. Next up.
Okay, so next up I have Colden Pro. I don't see that name in here. So we will go to the next person. Eliana Pfeiffer. Fenya, whose name I did see.
Yeah, I see Fenya in there.
Fenya, you're up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also here to comment on the green building policy. Firstly, this policy was expected to be in place in 2019. While I understand the challenges associated with the pandemic, I think it is important that we prioritize this policy in order to meet the goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. This goal is becoming more difficult to achieve with each month that we delay this necessary step. Likewise, I've been informed that the new draft of the policy grants points for new natural gas installations. This will only make it harder for us to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, as all of these will have to be replaced with clean energy systems. Furthermore, I fought to keep the environmentally destructive practice of fracking out of New York, and I am disappointed to see a policy draft that, through allowing natural gas, will cause this practice to expand in areas such as northeastern Pennsylvania, where it will endanger communities. My younger brother lives in Pennsylvania, and I don't want him to grow up surrounded by fracking pollution because politicians seem to be under the misconception that natural gas is green, despite the fact that it releases large amounts of methane, a greenhouse gas which is even more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of causing climate change. Thus, I ask you to reconsider the impractical and destructive allowance and incentivization of natural gas. As a young person, I will live my life in an era defined by climate change and defined by our action and inaction in this moment. And I'm happy to see that my local government is not urgently taking the necessary steps to respond to this crisis. Leaders at large are failing us. Our federal government is failing us, but I believe that you can do better.
Thanks, Fania.
Next, we have Celia Bakaitis.
Ooh, good job. Yep, that's me. Thank you for having us today. I'm coming today as somebody who lives, I work in Ithaca and I spend most of my money in Ithaca. First, I want to say that there is no room for natural gas in the green building policy. A plan that allows for new natural gas infrastructure just sabotages Ithaca's commitment to carbon neutrality by 2030. Because it commits us to the lifespan of that infrastructure. 10 years ago, I worked so hard to get the fracking moratorium in New York State. We all worked really hard to protect our communities. And since then, we've just learned more about the methane leaks that are contributing to climate change that are inherent in the natural gas infrastructure. So incorporating natural gas into a green building policy is simple hypocrisy at this point. We get to keep our greenwashed image of the fracking moratorium while continuing to cause harm. We can do far better than that. Ithaca is a prize for developers. We have a chance to set an appropriately high bar. And speaking of those kind of high bars, I did notice there was like a byline in the green building policy about social justice in terms of affordable building, affordable construction, affordable housing. We're at a point, we're in a moment of reckoning with the intersectionality of the multiple crises that we are facing. So how about rather than tax breaks for a luxury apartment building, how about incorporating a quota into any new housing projects for Section 8 recipients? We're at a national moment also where the political common sense is shifting away from the idea that government is there for protecting business interests, and we're shifting back towards the idea that government is there for protecting people.
One minute.
That's a wave that's coming, and let's be on the front of that wave. Let's be real about what needs to be done, and let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia.
Next, we have David Bradley. I didn't see that name. Marissa Lansing, whose name I did see.
That's me. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Lansing, and I'm a renter in the First Ward, 128 East Spencer Street. Thank you for your time this evening. Right now, I currently serve on the Ithaca Green New Deal Advisory Board and the Community Outreach and Engagement Working Group, as well as with my fellow local youth-led Sunrise Movement and Ithaca Green New Deal staff. These groups developed out of the city's bold commitment to passing a Green New Deal, and I'm here to speak about the green building policy, surprise, that was initially slated for the agenda tonight. This is a policy that has been stalling to pass for over 3 years. We are so excited to see it finalized in the boldest form that it can take. As a young person, I felt so empowered and so excited to implement real change around climate when the Green New Deal was passed last June, a year and a half ago. We were so excited to meet with the mayor, brainstorm together, and really light this fire to get something meaningful done here. It wasn't going to be an empty promise. However, much of what we've witnessed in this past year and a half from city leadership has been really disappointing and status quo. There's been no real embrace and celebration of the Green New Deal. The city has to be a leader and be public and be seen. You have committed us to reach carbon neutrality by 2030, but carbon neutrality is not possible if the city continues to burn natural gas, which is still allowed under this new policy. Here in Ithaca, the Green New Deal has been greenwashed and used as a buzzword that doesn't mean much, which is so heartbreaking for so many of us who put real faith in this government to stick to their word. We're not going to accept this. The green building policy is the first real tangible teeth of the Green New Deal. It's been the first real commitment from the city that you can follow through on, as community partners have worked tirelessly to engage folks that have been left at the margins to build the equity aspect of the Green New Deal. But the technical and code aspect of this resolution is on you. So as it stands, it's not enough. I know that you and Nick and everyone's been working so hard on it, but right now it's not the Green New Deal standard. It's not what the city committed to when you said you would take bold climate action to protect us from the climate crisis. We have to go further. We cannot allow any new gas installations in the city. Methane emissions are accelerating the disastrous effects of climate change. And over 45% of our greenhouse gas emissions community-wide is from the burning of natural gas. So we can't have more. So this policy is for all new buildings. And logically, if we know and we agree that fossil fuels are destroying our future, why would we allow new fossil fuel infrastructure when we can fully prevent that, when we have a Green New Deal in Ithaca? Previous drafts did not allow points for natural gas, and recent revisions have dropped the clause in optional points number 5 that actually give up to 2 points for developers that decide to build with natural gas or any fuel type for that matter. And as we've seen, developers are already adhering to this building code and even going beyond. This means that we have to do more, require at least 12 points, not 6 on the easy path. And clearly we don't need a 6-month grace period. I think that we can give more credit to the developer's ability to adapt. So we as a city of Ithaca can start taking this seriously. Okay, cool.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Sorry, doing too many things at once. Maggie?
Hi, my name is Maggie. I'm also currently a renter in Ithaca, and I would just like to also lend my support to the expansion of the green building policy and its removal of the fossil fuels exception. But I'm sure you guys will speak more about that next month, and I'll be happy to come back next month and give more in-depth explanations for my support. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maggie.
Okay, next we have Hannah Brodsky.
Hannah stepped out, but she left a comment in the comment section.
Okay. Megan, I didn't get the last name. I don't know if there's a Megan.
Cosgrove, there's a Cosgrove.
Yep, that's me.
Oh, yeah, that's her. Yep, I have a C. I must have run out of brain power.
No, I think I only put in the C. Sorry, it's Megan.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hi. I was just so impressed with the comments of the people who came before me. I'm also here to talk about the green building project. The fracking issue is the closest thing to my heart in this reading about what is being allowed and welcomed and given points for. I also worked extremely hard. My family and many other families that I know put our lives on hold to fight fracking in New York. And I remember where I was and how I felt and how it was the moment that fracking was banned in New York. It was a huge moment for so many people in our community because we worked so hard on this. And so the people in Pennsylvania are still suffering those consequences, just like all the other folks have said. I can't believe that Ithaca would move forward with a plan to do anything in support of fracked gas coming into the city and all of the other concerns that go along with natural gas as a power source. And then I also want to echo what Celia said about social justice and equitable, fair, affordable housing being really inseparable from the issue of green building. That if we have the inefficiencies and inequity that comes along with houselessness and people aren't able to afford housing. Right now, the crisis is so huge. There are literally hundreds of empty apartment units in Ithaca. They're listed as available. However, those renting companies are not willing to rent to Section 8 renters. The housing crisis is unbelievable. And there's a ton of backwards practice that's keeping people out of housing and keeping them on the streets and keeping them in the shelter in the middle of COVID. So addressing that along with any green building or any building projects that are coming up in the city, I think is crucial to being responsible to the citizens that live here.
1 minute.
That's all I have to say. Thanks.
We have Dave Bradley. I don't see anyone else in the waiting room. Lisa, is that correct?
I see Donnell.
But I think he's here for the Cass Park.
Oh, okay.
And then.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else then.
Okay. Well, that went smoother than we thought it would at the beginning of the meeting. So there is an iPhone, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I see there's an iPhone on there. I'm not sure who that is. If it's someone to speak. Not sure.
No, Joanne, it's James Trasher. We're just sitting for the public hearing at 2:15. So
Okay.
I'm
All right,
on my
James.
phone.
Thank you. That's fine. We just wanted to make sure we knew who you were.
And I'll just say to all the speakers who showed up tonight, thank you for coming. And apologies again for not sending out the Zoom link in a more timely manner. I will say, I'll just second what Joanne said earlier. You know, the COVID obviously threw a real curveball at the city, and it really has impacted our finances and our ability to move forward, not just on the green building policy, but on all kinds of things, everything from, you know, road work to other planning initiatives. That said, I realize obviously how important this is. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a major priority for the city and has to be incorporated into everything we're doing in terms of our city operations. I'm very pleased that we're bringing this forward next month. And, you know, I'll say that I realize we had some technical difficulties tonight. If there's anyone out there who's watching who didn't get a chance to speak, please feel free to come back next month and we'll make sure that everybody has a chance to be heard. So thanks again to everybody who came out tonight. So next up on our agenda is the annual lead agency concurrence. So we do this, I know we're pretty familiar with this at this point. This is something we do yearly. There are some projects for which Common Council is what is known as an involved agency. Basically what we're doing with this resolution is ensuring that the planning board can act as a lead agency throughout the year for those projects in which Common Council is also an involved agency. So if there is a motion on that resolution. Someone want to move it? Donna and then Laura. Any discussion on that? This is a pretty routine thing. We do this regularly. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. I saw Cynthia commented, no response to public comment. Cynthia, do you have a response? I'm sorry about that. I moved forward maybe a little too quickly. If you have a comment, feel free to give one.
Yeah, thank you. I really want to thank everybody who came out to speak and highlighting aspects of the Green New Deal, proposed Green New Deal policy. You know, I appreciate those who shared their experiences with the fight against fracked gas. I also remember the day that you and we won that battle. It gave me goosebumps just thinking about it. So I did want to ask mainly to staff, since this is coming back next month, will there be an opportunity for staff to evaluate the impact of possibly changing the point structure with regards to the use of natural gas in new construction? Or it's just mainly we're just going to go with what we have and then go through public comment, and that would be the time to look at the point structure and any possible changes then?
Well, I can certainly speak to Nick about it and to our smaller group and see what we can do. I think we heard loud and clear the concern about that. Whether we bring it forward in advance of next month's meeting, I can't guarantee, but I will talk to Nick and we'll see where that fits into the timeline.
Okay, thank you. I realize that these point structures, you know, I'm always very concerned when you pull the thread in one place and lots of other things that you don't anticipate become affected. So it's not necessarily an easy thing just to say, we'll change the point structure here. But if there is an opportunity now to look at this with a different point of view, to being able to address the concerns that were raised today, that would be helpful. So thank you. And thank you, Seth, for giving the opportunity to explore this a little further.
Sure. Was there any other response to public comment? Okay. Next up, I think we're at dogs on the commons because we did the watershed rules earlier.
Yep.
So obviously we had this last month that went to council. There was still some concern about the language. I know that staff took this back and tried to address some of the concerns that have been brought up at the council meeting. So the resolution you see in the packet is a product of that revision. I hear a dog in the background. It's not mine. It's very appropriate. And Donna, you had sent around something earlier. I think you'd said you had some suggestions for how to make it even clearer.
Yeah, do you want me to go ahead and read that now?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so let me find it. I got to work through all these Green New Deal comments to find it. Here. So what's written now is that no animals are allowed on the primary commons except by special permit. This provision does not apply to leash dogs as allowed by Chapter 164 and any service animals providing assistance to people with special needs and police working dogs. I suggest that we simplify that to no animals are allowed on the primary commons except those with special permits and leash dogs. Actually, I'm sorry, with special permits and leash dogs as allowed by Article 164, Article 2. I see now that I'm mistaken. We could also take out special permits because you don't need a special permit to have a dog on the commons once we change this. And I also see that in the original, in the resolution that we have, we spell out that the dogs can't be tied to a stationary object, and something else that's already in the code. Let me find that as well. So we might be able to simplify it even further if we take that out. Oh, what's already in the code is that no animals can climb on any structure in the commons, and also no animals shall be tied, affixed, or bound to any light pole, tree, plant, or blah, blah, blah. And animals are prohibited from entering planters on the commons. So if we want to simplify our resolution even further, we can take out line 4 and let's see. Yeah, just take out line 4 because we already have a prohibition about tying a dog up.
Thanks.
And line 6 about the planters.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I would suggest those changes. And in prior correspondence, I suggested that we also allow for provisions to be made to ban, allow it to be possible to ban dogs during special festivals. One of my colleagues said that's already in the code and I couldn't find it. So if anybody's aware of that, I think that would be helpful to clarify that it's already in the code.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I generally support trying to make this simpler rather than more complicated. That was a point that the DIA, who originally actually passed a resolution encouraging us to do this, had made. There was an email they sent around just saying like they wanted us to try to make this as simple as possible.
Right.
I think, there may be some common specific rules, like, I think the retractable leash, the 6-foot retractable leash.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, if it's already in if it's already in the code somewhere else, I don't think we need to include it.
I agree.
Cynthia?
Yeah, actually, I think I would actually take the opposing view in this case, in the sense that I think that this is something that people will end up referring to frequently. And by having items, even if they are elsewhere in the code, to have them all in one place for simplicity's sake, because people would not necessarily know to keep looking if they don't see it here, might make it easier for the layperson who's not familiar with the city code if they're looking for reference of what is allowed or not. So if anything, I would add onto this list of 6 items, I would add whatever reference to not having dogs on the commons during special events, just so it's sort of a catch-all, all in one place set of rules.
You're suggesting to add on, just saying not having the dogs during.
What I'm saying is that paring things down may not necessarily make it easier. And by listing all the items that people would automatically refer to in one place would be helpful. So rather than removing item 4 and item 6, I would keep it in place and perhaps add an item 7 if it is already elsewhere in the code, add an item 7 that no dogs shall be on the commons during special events.
Laura.
Thank you. And I appreciate Cynthia's comments, and I certainly appreciate Donna's help on this. One thing we might do is I would agree with keeping this simple, and we could always put in a reference, a direction to other parts in the city code. Rather than repeating the information, we could simply refer people to the other code, as I believe we've done in other types of documents. So that would be my preference. Eliminate number 4 and number 6, and we can refer people to where that information exists elsewhere. Donna also made helpful wording change in number 5. Donna, do you want to read that?
Yes. Oh, so that's currently written, dog owners are responsible for promptly cleaning up after their dogs. I'd suggest dog handlers or owners must promptly clean up their dog's waste.
And I think that's a really good addition, because there are people who are dog walkers. It may not be their dog, but they may be dog handlers. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. I think it's best to try to make this simpler. I think for the layperson who's interested in finding out what the rules are in the commons, I think you're far more likely to target them through signage on the commons versus the code. I mean, the sort of person who's going into the code to look at these regulations is probably going to be comfortable with a reference point. So I think I'm fine using the reference. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to. So what we should do in that case is this phrase, all dogs on the commons are subject to all rules outlined in chapter 164 of the city code. We should add, what's the other one? 157. Article 2, 157 also has other rules about dogs on the commons. So we should refer them to 164 and 157.
Okay. Jennifer, are you okay with these changes?
Yeah, I'm making them as you're saying them.
Okay.
Do you want me to show you the screen, or?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you
Okay.
weren't like worried about what we're proposing or anything. Okay.
No, the only thing is I'm not sure where in the code it says that dogs are banned during events. I'm trying to do a search, and so I'm not sure if that exists or not. So if you want it may make sense to put it here, because I'm not finding it. Or it might exist and I'm just not finding it.
I did several searches and I couldn't find it either.
Yeah.
Is it the type of thing you could stipulate for a special event? Like, you have to get a special events permit, right? So maybe if there's certain events where you don't want dogs there, you could just say that's a condition of this permit.
Well, but you're allowing other people to have the condition of the permit wouldn't be on the people that you've allowed to have the dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
The conditions on the permit would go to the person requesting the permit.
Right.
So I think that if you want to say that, we should probably just put it here, because I'm just not finding it in the code.
Cynthia.
Yeah, I think I would be, if it's not already there, I would be hesitant, because it would be a hard thing to, when you have special conditions, if people think that they can always bring their dog onto the commons with certain conditions, they will continue to do that. So especially at a special event, I'm not sure how someone would advise against it, whether or not there would be signs all over the place or what you would require in order for people to be advised ahead of time that dogs weren't allowed.
Right.
Especially because special events also bring in people from out of town. So they wouldn't know. So just from an enforceability standpoint, I find it difficult. And partially, I thought that one of the reasons to allow dogs on the commons was the signs themselves were ineffective. So I guess I'm hearing that what now currently says no dogs will now say dogs under these conditions. So we would still be putting up signs with regards to dogs. I'm just not sure how effective that is as we engage in that discussion.
Donna.
That's a fair point. And I'm imagining that even if we run into the enforceability problem again. So if somebody brings their dog to the Ithaca Festival, which I think would be a bad idea, somebody's got to say, do you have a permit? Do you live on the commons? Are you from out of town? Blah, blah, blah. So we run into the same problem all over again. So maybe I'm not as crazy about that idea as I thought I was. I mean, I think in publicity, we can make an informal kind of guideline that it's really not a great place to bring your dog, the Ithaca Festival. But I'm seeing now that it's probably not a very good official rule to have.
Joanne.
I just wanted to say that I'm sure many of you have been to our festivals on the commons, and probably at the Ithaca Festival, there are more dogs there than at the Westminster Dog Show. So I do think it would be difficult to enforce.
Yeah. Laura, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to make note of the report we received from the Public Safety and Information Commission. They sent a very thorough report that I found really helpful. They did a lot of research. Commissioners did research on other communities and what they have in place for their public commons, similar areas to our public commons. They also make note of the Downtown Ithaca Alliance and the work they did. The DIA informed the commission in February 2019 that 13 of 16 business owners responded to a survey favoring permitting dogs on the commons. So we are hearing from businesses, we are hearing from a number of individuals from the Visitors Bureau that there is an interest in making this ordinance on the commons consistent with the ordinance throughout the rest of the city. So I just wanted to thank PSI for their work and their report.
Great. Thank you for remembering that. So we have some proposed changes. Donna proposed the changes. I don't know if Donna wants to maybe move those, and then we can discuss it further if necessary. Donna, do you want to make a motion on your changes?
Yeah, I move that we amend the current resolution in the packet with those changes, which I can send to Jennifer also.
Okay.
Oh, I already sent them.
You sent them already, yeah. Is that a second, Steve, or a comment?
Yep.
Second. I have one question about the special permit, because like we're getting rid of that section that.
Yes.
Do we still have a need for special permits for animals? Is that why we're keeping that in there?
No, as I was reading it, I realized I was mistaken. So the line should be, no animals are allowed on the primary commons no animals are allowed on the primary commons except those with special permits and dog. That's correct. Because if you wanted to bring a llama on the commons, you would need a special permit.
All right, gotcha.
That's still correct.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have the amendment is on the floor. Do you want to vote on the amendment? So this is Donna's amendment, kind of outlining the email she sent in her comments earlier. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. So back to the original resolution. Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure where we left it, whether you wanted to leave those two in, the one about tethering to a stationary object and the not going in a planter, or you wanted to remove it from here?
I thought the intention was to remove it. Is that right, Donna?
Well, my intention was to remove number 6 because it's elsewhere in the code. Number 6 and number 4. Cynthia had disagreed with that, so it was not a unanimous sentiment.
And I'm sorry.
Steve? And then Cynthia.
Yeah, sure. I was just I thought the point Cynthia made about the importance of specificity in the law itself is a really good point, because I don't think like the average person who's walking on the commons isn't going to be referring to the law. The law is to help provide as much clarity as possible as to what we're trying to enforce. And I think that's kind of what we've run into in the past, is just a little bit of ambivalence on as far as like what we're really trying to enforce. And so I'm all for making sure that this is as specific and nailed down as possible, so that we're not leaving making it a judgment call for the enforcers. And so if we want to leave that in here, I would support it. And then I'm also just realizing, like, if we say stationary, no tethering your dog to a stationary object, the planters aren't technically stationary. So would that be some kind of a weird loophole, because they have those wheels on them and they can move around? So I think maybe we should call them out just individually.
I think Cynthia had a comment, and then Donna, I think, wanted to say something.
My comment mainly was before we vote on the final, if we could, since we do have the capacity over Zoom to actually look at the language that we're changing, if Jennifer could share her screen, that would at least allow me to know exactly what we're voting on.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I need permission to share. Joanne, looks like you're the host.
Go ahead. You should be able to share now.
Okay.
Donna, did you want to say something? I know you had your hand up. Are you muted, Donna?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't move my hand fast enough. I wanted to note, to Steve's point, I'm fine with what Stephen and Cynthia said about making it as clear as possible. I think that's fine. But to the full part of 157 says no animals shall be tied, affixed, or bound to any light pole, tree, planter, pavilion, or other infrastructure on the commons. So it kind of covers everything in addition to stationary object. So I think we might be okay on that.
All right, so Jennifer shared the screen. If we all take a look at this, make sure we're comfortable with it. So if all dogs in the commons are subject to all rules outlined in this chapter and in chapter 164 of the city code, we probably don't need to say as well as the following rules, right? We're saying all rules in this chapter.
Right, I agree.
I'm sorry, you cut out and I didn't hear what you said. What did you say we probably don't need to say?
So it says all dogs in the commons are subject to all rules outlined in this chapter and in chapter 164 of the city code. And then it says as well as the following rules. I was saying we probably don't need to say as well as the following rules, since we say all the rules in the chapter. And then the rules below, I mean, I'm fine with them. I don't know if others have. Oh, sorry, Cynthia.
Donna had suggested referencing chapter 157.
This is chapter 157. That's why I said
oh, I'm sorry.
This chapter, yeah.
Any other comments? This looks fine to me. Are we ready to vote on this? This is the ordinance itself. All those in favor? Let's see if I can see everyone. It looks like it's unanimous. So that passes unanimously, and that will go to council, back to council in January. Thank you all for your work on this, especially Donna for making those changes. It really helped improve the clarity, I think. And Jennifer, thank you. Okay, so, sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me. Next up is is it the Green Street Garage?
The DDA.
It's the DDA. Okay, great. All right, so there's a lot of, so Nels is here together with the project team. There's a lot of materials in the agenda packet, including a resolution, plus the agreement itself, as well as some project designs. Obviously, this is a really big project right in the core of the city, which could get us some parking and some affordable housing. Definitely, those are our big goals as we seek to figure out what to do about our aging parking garage. So I don't know if anyone, maybe the thing to do is to move the resolution and second it, and then we can open up the discussion for questions and comments. So is there a motion on the resolution itself? Moved by Laura, seconded by Steve. Discussion. Any questions for Nels or for the project team? I saw Laura had her hand up.
Thank you, Seth. Yeah, I did have one friendly amendment to the resolution in our packet, and it is in the 5th whereas, and has to do with a deadline, an expiration. This is whereas the DDA expires. As written, it says January 31st, 2020. In fact, as we see later in the documents, the expiration is actually February 1, 2022. And I had shared that with Nels ahead of time.
And that's so that's just a clarification?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Cynthia.
I did have a question. I know that it outlines lease rents and parking spaces and so on. Under this agreement, who is responsible for maintenance and cleaning of the parking garage? Is that included in the lease? Or is the lease strictly for the use of space?
We're kind of at a middle point here in determining the final terms of the lease agreement, which would include things like maintenance. This agreement is subject to a Common Council approved lease agreement, which has not been developed in final detail yet. So that's an issue that could still be addressed. My expectation is that it will be similar to the discussions we've had with Vicino for the center sections of the garage, in which the property owner is not interested in maintaining the garage. It would be, the city would be leasing the garage, operating the garage, setting the parking rates, and maintaining the garage. There may be some issues about warranties and, quality, structural elements that would fall outside of that. But by and large, the expectation is that the city would maintain it. The alternative is that there would be a higher lease rate if we ask the owner to fulfill some of those obligations over a 30-year period.
All right. Can you confirm, I believe the agreement stated, but could you just confirm that the prevailing wage requirements will be retained for this developer?
There is a clause in the agreement that they have to meet the prevailing wage requirements for construction labor on the project unless they get an explicit approval from the Department of Labor that this project is not subject to that requirement.
Are they going to apply for that?
The latest discussion we've had is they are not going to pursue that.
Okay. And lastly, do we know yet, or is there a discussion as to who will oversee the compliance with the affordability component for the rental units, or is that also open for yet to be determined?
Well, the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency will enter into an affordability agreement with the developer. So that would be the agency will be executing an agreement with the developer for a 30-year time period to meet the affordability requirements. They have just recently gone through the Industrial Development Agency for incentives. And my understanding is that they've agreed to make a contribution to the Community Housing Development Fund of $500,000 to satisfy 10% requirement of the affordable housing. The project will include 10% on-site as well of below market rate housing. So the IDA's goal, our goal was 20% at the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency of below market rate housing. And that will be satisfied with 10% on-site and a in lieu payment of 10%, an in lieu payment of $500,000 to meet the other 10% pursuant to the IDA's workforce housing policy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So that was actually not outlined in the material that was provided, correct? Because I didn't see that anywhere. I thought that they were committed to a 20% affordable at 80% AMI.
That's a very recent development, just last week before the Industrial Development Agency. That is in compliance with the framework for affordable housing in this project, which sets a minimum of 10% and a goal of 20%, as long as the return on a cash and cash return of the developer is 8% or more. So they will still have to show us that they're not making more than 8% on cash and cash return. If they are, they'll have to increase the 10% on-site housing upwards until they're at that limit. We have seen some early numbers in the returns, and it does not appear that they're at over 8%, though, after you consider the $500,000 contribution to the Community Housing Development Fund.
So I just wanted to clarify that. So on top of the 10% that's required that's on site, that's included in the project, they will also be making a $500,000 contribution to the Community Development Housing Fund to satisfy that 20% goal?
Yes, that's a good way of thinking about it. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I had a question about, because I know that some of the spaces in the Green Street garage are reserved for Marriott. I presume that once we have the lease on the new parking garage, those spaces there will be spaces that have to be reserved for the hotel. Is that like a condition that will be in the parking agreement? So a new parking agreement essentially has to be negotiated with Marriott.
It's a little more complicated than a straight answer. The parking agreement will survive the conveyance of the property, and the city's operation of the garage will still maintain that. However, we're in negotiations with the Marriott to amend that agreement and replace it. They're seeking to they currently have 90 spaces designated for shared use between their hotel guests and short-term hourly parking by the public. And they pay a rate based on 90 parking spaces, the same monthly rate that the public pays for a monthly parking pass for those 90 spaces. They've observed that their guests don't actually use 90 spaces on a regular basis. They use closer to 55, and we're negotiating amendments to reduce that down to 55 parking spaces. That agreement would come back to Common Council for your review if we get to a point where both parties are recommending approval for that. But in any event, the hotel parking agreement currently in place, unless there's a change, would survive the conveyance. The city is obligated to continue to provide parking support for hotel guest parking at the prevailing public rate.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Donna.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about a lot of things, but it's my understanding that fencing has already gone up for this site and that there's already a site plan. So I don't so set me straight here. We haven't sold the property yet. We have this pending agreement, but movement is already taking place. So please, could you please clarify that?
Yeah, the project site that's under consideration for sale to the developer is the air rights above the eastern section of the garage. The developer also owns 215 East State Street, the Rothschild building that comes out to the Commons. So it's technically not part of the conveyance. That's an operating building on the Commons, but it will be joined together basically with this project. They'll be coordinated and connected all the way through between Green and State Street. So there's currently an effort underway to make renovations to the building to accommodate a new commercial tenant in that building. Home Green Home has relocated down on the Commons. That space is open, and the Finger Lakes School of Massage is no longer operating there. So the landlord is making modifications to the building to get ready for new tenants. That's outside the bounds of this agreement.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Laura?
Yes, thank you. Just as follow-up to Donna's comment, and some of us have heard from one of the business owners adjacent to this project, I would once again encourage the developer to share information and progress reports with the city, also with the local businesses, the businesses that are on the Commons, so that it's transparent what work is taking place when and how it might impact local businesses. So that's just a comment and a encouragement for the developer to be open in communication with the city on progress reports, but also with local businesses.
Thanks, Laura. I'll second that. I think communication is really key. Any other comments on this? So this will go to the January council meeting. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you especially to Nels, who has done yeoman's work on putting this all together and shepherding it forward, and to the IRA committee. I know Laura is a member. Really appreciate all the hard work that's been put into bringing this project forward. It's a big, very transformative project for downtown, and certainly serves a very important purpose in helping us rebuild our parking garage and get affordable housing in the core of downtown. So thank you. I think the last thing on our agenda is the Cass Park mountain bike resolution.
Are we also 5E is rescind the
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Developer designation?
Yeah, Inlet Island.
Yes, Inlet Island. I'm sorry, I skipped one. So thanks. And I guess we could do the same here. We have a resolution in the packet from Nels. Does someone want to move the resolution? Moved by Laura, seconded by Cynthia. Any discussion? I really appreciated reading through the minutes and the ancient history and the votes on this project before my time. It seems like it was pretty contentious. Essentially, Nels, what we're trying to do here is rescind the designated developer status because we have parties that are interested in developing there. Is that the idea?
That's correct. We just want to create a level field for competition for the best project and development team to come forward with a proposal at the conceptual level. And if there's a conceptual project that the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency supports, they'll bring it to the Common Council for your input. And we just wanted to be clear that there's nobody has a leg up on other developers based on a 2006 or 2007 designation.
Right. It makes total sense to me. And we just went through this process with the Green Street Garage, so kind of similar type, which worked out. So any discussion on this or questions for Nels? All right, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nels. Next up is the Cass Park mountain bike trail resolution. This was in the committee last month, and we waited a month, tabled it because there was a request for some more, just to take a little more time on this and just make sure that all the different parties that were impacted could weigh in. I know that this was circulated, and did we receive? I saw a few comments that all seemed positive. I'm not sure if we had any critical comments from this.
David Nutter did send in a letter, kind of late today.
Okay. And And I know Donal Fitterer is here. If anyone has any questions about this, I'm not a mountain biker, but I generally support this. I think it's great to add a resource for mountain bikers downtown. I know we do have a lot of great mountain biking trails outside of the city. I think somebody mentioned Shindagan at last month's meeting, but I think it's great to have opportunities for mountain bikers in Cass Park. Laura, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I counted up 10 people who were supportive of this. We have one who is not supportive of this. In terms of those who are supporting, one email of support came from Megan Powers, who is the vice chair of MATCOM, and another letter of support from Monica Roth, who is the chair of the Parks Commission, Pruners Commission. And I think Pruners just met, I think she said last night, and that both Jean Grace and Jim Del Terrio were at that meeting. So one of the concerns we had the last time we spoke about this, or the first time we spoke about this, was wanting to make sure Jean Grace and Jim had input, and it looks like they have had input and are supportive of this now. So I just wanted to mention that.
Great. Donna, do you have a comment?
I wanted to note that Dave Nutter, I thought, wrote a very thoughtful and sensitive letter. He was concerned about the loss of habitat for birds and some plantings. He was concerned about erosion because it's a wetland. And I think it was a very, as I said, very sensitive letter, very thorough. And it gave me pause, but I think a park, as distinguished from a natural area, should serve recreational purposes. And this is one area, this is one place where we can expand the outdoor recreational opportunities in the city. So I think I still continue to support it, but I wanted to acknowledge that he raised legitimate concerns that should be given some consideration. And I appreciate his continued interest in so many things in the city and is speaking up about natural areas in his very informed way.
Thanks, Donna. Cynthia, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so yes, I am also liaison to the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Areas Committee. So we had a very nice conversation with regards to this. There was, as mentioned, general support. It is some of the concerns that had previously been discussed with regards to impact to trees. Jean Grace had a chance to look at it and determine that the way the design is proposed, it would go around the existing trees. There might be one or two dead trees that would need to be removed in order to make the trap usable, but that would not be a concern. One of the overlying concerns has to do with funding for ongoing maintenance of the track. It is sort of off the beaten track, so to speak. Also, with regards to concerns about activities that may occur there, and trash and needles and other things that might be there, and the ability for staff to keep an eye on that and maintain it adequately. So I would like to know more about the maintenance requirements that would be expected of city staff and what would be done by Cycle NY.
Tim is not here tonight, or Jean. I don't know if Donald, is that something you're able to answer?
Sure, I think I can answer that. Essentially, most of the maintenance will be done by Cycle CNY volunteers. Essentially, that's going to be clearing brush and taking any sort of debris outside of around where we would be riding. Any sort of features that are there that need maintenance, we would work on that as well. We're trying to minimize any sort of cost to the city and to the Parks Department. That was one of the things that Jim was stressed with us, and I don't really expect any sort of real expense for the park. And if we were to do something that required some money, I think we would do some fundraising from within Cycle CNY.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate that.
Any further discussion? Laura?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did have one more question. And it might have actually been in Dave's email that he asked this. I didn't see the information on the width of the trail. Can you share that with us? What's the dimension, the width of the trails?
We try to make them as narrow as possible. I would say probably on the order of 2 to 4 feet, depending on the area and what we're working with. If there is something that is more advanced that they're going to ride over, we need to have more width so somebody can ride around it. But essentially, these trails are going to be the width of a normal walking trail, maybe a little bit less at times. We're not looking for 6-foot wide thoroughfares.
Okay, thanks for that detail.
Yes.
Thanks. Any further discussion? Have we moved this yet? Do we need to move it? Yes, it's see Steve's hand is creeping up, seconded by Cynthia. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Donald. Appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you, folks. Cheers. Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Happy holidays. And next is the minutes. Did we actually get the minutes? Okay, I don't think we got them actually. I think it said under separate cover on the agenda, but we might have to hold off on the minutes.
Deb, do you have audio, Deb?
It sounds like she's got audio. We'll have to, I guess, revisit the minutes next month.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Laura, seconded by Steve.
Wow.
Those in favor? Yeah, well, that ended
Well,
early.
I just want to give a shout out to Marissa Lansing and Sunrise Ithaca. I did contact Marissa and just ask her to ask everyone who's very passionate about the green building policy to be as brief as they could and still get their point across. And I was really appreciative that
No, I
she
think that went really well. Thank you.
took that to heart. And yeah, I thought it went very, very well. So.
Great, y'all. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Everyone.
Have happy holidays.
Good
Stay
night.
safe. and
Thank you,
safe.
everyone. Happy holidays.